are stories so unbelievable, they sound like something out of a movie, but they are not. This is one of them. A case that shocked everyone, with delicate characters and others who are deeply disturbing. So sit back and get ready to hear a true story, a true crime story. Elisa Claps was born on January 21, 1977, in Potenza, the state capital of Basilicata, to Filomena Lemma and Antonio Claps. She had two brothers, Gildo and Luciano. Elisa was a very kind and generous girl who always tried to see the good in others. Because of this, we can say she was a little naive. According to those who knew her, Elisa always justified people and was very compassionate. This part of her personality will become very important later in her story. Elisa was very close to her family, especially to her father Antonio, who never recovered from what happened to her. The day of her disappearance. It was Sunday, September 12, 1993. That day, the Claps family had planned a lunch at their country house outside Potenza. Elisa's parents, Filomena and Antonio, got up early and went there with her brother, Luciano. Elisa and Gildo would have joined them later. Elisa went to church, supposedly with her friend Eliana. Around 11:30 a.m., she left and went to the Church of the Holy Trinity. At 12:30 a.m., someone rang the doorbell. Gildo was almost sure it was Elisa, but it was Eliana, asking if Elisa was there. Gildo was confused and said no. He thought Elisa was supposed to be with her. Then Eliana said they had lost sight of each other and she would go out to look for her. Gildo didn't believe the story. He knew Potenza, and since it was a small town, it was almost impossible to lose someone all of a sudden. Later, Eliana admitted she had lied. She and Elisa didn't go to church together. The truth was that Elisa had a meeting with a boy and was supposed to meet Eliana afterwards at 12:30 in the town square. But Elisa never arrived, and Eliana didn't know where she was. Gildo immediately asked who the boy was. Eliana answered, Danilo Restivo. At that moment, Gildo had a terrible feeling. He was sure Danilo had done something bad to his sister. Danilo Restivo was born on April 3, 1972, in Erice. In the 1980s, he and his family moved to Potenza because his father, Maurizio Restivo, got an important job that made him have relationships with several powerful people. From a young age, the people who knew Danilo have always seen him as strange and different. But his father always protected him instead of getting him the help he needed. Danilo had an obsession with girls that got worse over time. He used to secretly watch them and had a fixation with their hair. He would cut pieces of it and even frame some locks. When he was 21, he was obsessed with Elisa. In the months before she disappeared, he often bothered her. He stopped her in the street, followed her, called her, and always asked to go out with her. It was so annoying that Elisa accepted to spend some time with him just to make him stop. One summer before Elisa disappeared, Danilo approached her while she was with her brother Gildo. Danilo asked her to go for a walk, but Elisa clearly didn't want to. Even after she said no, Danilo grabbed her arm. Gildo stepped in, reaffirming his sister's refusal, and after Danilo stared at him for a few seconds, he walked away. That moment got into Gildo's mind. So, on September 12th, when Eliana said Elisa had met with Danilo that morning, Eliana also explained that Danilo had been calling and bothering Elisa the day before. He said he had a gift to give her, and Elisa agreed to meet him, hoping he would have left her alone afterwards. Gildo called Danilo's house immediately, but Danilo's father, Maurizio, answered and refused to let him talk to his son. When Gildo finally spoke with Danilo, the boy said that they met at the church and Elisa left while he stayed there to pray. The other members of the Claps family came back from the country house and went straight to Danilo's house. Again, Maurizio refused to let his son come down, but after threats from Luciano, Danilo finally came. However, he only repeated the same confused story. Then, Gildo and Luciano went to the Church of the Holy Trinity, the last place Elisa had been seen. But they couldn't enter some rooms because the priest, Don Mimi, had left with the keys. At that point, the Claps family reported Elisa missing. But the police didn't take it seriously. They said maybe Elisa decided to leave home on her own. Next day, the police went to talk to Danilo, but he had left Potenza to take a dentistry exam in Naples. Maurizio said he would return the next day, but there was no sign of him. The police waited for him at the Potenza bus station, but he didn't show up. That's because his father and their lawyer had stopped the bus before it arrived and told Danilo to get off early. Of course, they already knew the police were waiting. To look innocent, Danilo, his father, and the lawyer went to the police station later that day. Danilo gave a confused story and kept changing details.
Allora, Elisa era da sola e mi ha invitato ad entrare nella chiesa. Entrato nella chiesa, io ho superato Elisa perché dovevo parlarle e superata Elisa l'ho portata dietro l'altare. Adesso non so se il nome è la canonica, comunque dietro l'altare dove ci sta l'organo. Allora io mi sono seduto, ricordati, mi sono seduto, allora ho preso la tenda sinistra, sono entrato nella tenda sinistra, mi sono seduto, qua stavo io e qua stava Elisa, di fronte a me ci stava la tenda, l'organo, l'altra tenda e l'ufficio del parroco. Vabbè.
The investigators noticed a big cut on his left hand, so they asked him to explain how he got injured. Danilo said that after he met with Elisa, he wanted to check on the new escalator that some workers were building in the town, and to give a further look, he fell down the escalator, and a piece of metal cut his hand between the thumb and the index finger, and that there was a lot of blood. The police went to the working place, but didn't find any proof to verify that what Danilo said was true. Moreover, his jacket, shirt, and jeans were full of blood. Therefore, when the police went to their house, they asked for the clothes, but his father refused, saying that they had been washed. The police wanted to take them anyway, but shockingly, the head of the investigation also refused to take the clothes as evidence. This was very strange because the investigator should have helped the Claps family. Later, it was discovered that Danilo's father had paid 100 million lire, old Italian money, to the husband of Felicia Genovese, the head of the investigation, to influence the case in Danilo's favor. Then, the authorities tried to search the Church of Saint Trinity, but Don Mimi won't let them inside because he had many relationships with important people, and one of them was, once again, Danilo's dad. 2002, Danilo moved to London, where the situation grew out of hand. Some months later, indeed, on the 12th of November, he killed his neighbor, Heather Burnett, who was a mother of two kids, that found their own mother in a lake of blood.
My mum's just been murdered. This is not a joke. Your mum's been murdered? Yes. Right. Is that your mum I can hear in the background? No, that's my blooming sister. Right, so where's your mother then? She's lying in the bathroom on her back. And what's happened to her? She's probably had her pieces cut off her, for God's sake. Right, now who's done that? I don't know. I just walked through the door. We were calling for my mum. She's not here. Walked into the bathroom. She's lying on her back. She's dead. She's had her breasts cut off. This is mad. Had her breasts cut off? Yes.
The murder happened around 9 a.m., but it didn't happen in the bathroom where the body was found. In fact, the murder took place in Heather's study, where she sewed since she worked at home as a seamstress. Heather tried to fight the murderer, but in the end he killed her by hitting her many times with a hammer, breaking her cranium. After the body was dragged into the bathroom, and after he tortured her by cutting with a knife some part of her body, he mutilated both her breasts and placed them in the back of her victim's head. In the crime scene, the following items were found: cut hair strands. One hand was holding Heather's own hair, and the other was holding the hair of another unknown woman. Shoe prints were also found, as well as a green towel that did not belong to the victim's family. In fact, they found out it belonged to Danilo Restivo. Then they checked the victim's devices and found an email written to her sister where she complained about a client who had ordered curtains from her. She found him very strange and unsettling. As arrived when the client left Heather's house, she realized that her spare house keys had disappeared. So the authorities immediately questioned Danilo, but he managed to talk his way out, claiming he wasn't even there that day because he was attending a computer science course and had his bus ticket as proof. His alibi seemed solid, except that they later discovered he had changed his entry time on the attendance register, showing he had entered the course an hour after Heather's murder, although he corrected by stating he had arrived early.
Sono andato a casa di Ela.
I went to Heather's room
per commissionare delle tende
to commission some curtains
che
were going to be put in Fiamma's bedroom.
Despite this, the English agents looked for more information about Danilo and found his connection to the case of Elisa Claps. So he was under 24-hour surveillance by agents. Months passed, and Danilo began to make the agents suspicious. On May 12, 2004, he went to a park wearing gloves and a heavy coat, despite the high temperature. He started chasing a woman, then suddenly changed direction, went to his car, changed clothes, but was wearing identical clothes to those he had taken off. The police, suspicious, stopped him and asked to see his car, where they found a knife, gloves, scissors, and a balaclava, basically a killer's kit. But inexplicably, he managed to justify all the items. The gloves were for catching insects for his iguana, the identical clothes because his parents had taught him to change in case he got muddy. The balaclava was for his sinusitis, and the coat because he felt cold. Once again, Danilo Restivo managed to escape. 6 years later, in 2008, Don Mimì died and he was replaced by Don Ambrogio. The real breakthrough came on March 17, 2010, 17 years later after Elisa's disappearance. On that day, workers went to the Church of the Holy Trinity to check the cause of some water filtrations. While there, they noticed a door next to the bell tower that led to an old and dirty attic, which had a terrible smell. When they opened the door, one of them saw something strange, and upon closer inspection, they realized it was a human rest. When the mobile squad was notified, they had no doubts. They had finally found Elisa. Further confirmation came when they recognized Elisa's glasses and the shirt she was wearing the day of her disappearance. The autopsy revealed that Elisa had been stabbed 13 times with a knife. Her bra had been cut and her pant zipper had been lowered. On Elisa's skull there were still some hair, some of which had been cut off. But this wasn't the first time workers had entered in that attic during Elisa's disappearance. It's believed that in 1997, after an earthquake, some works had been made right in that attic. The workers reported presence of a dead body to the parish priest at the time, Don Mimì, who obviously hiding it. The authorities also noticed an opening that served to let out the smell of the decomposing body. This slit, cut with precision and calm, was probably made by the priest because Danilo wouldn't have had the time to do it, and also his hand was injured. Thus, Don Mimì became an active accomplice to Danilo. Soon after, the Italian and English authorities began to collaborate. Since both Elisa's case and Heather's murder were strictly connected, in mid-May 2010, Danilo was arrested by the English authorities for the murder of Heather Burnett. Almost simultaneously, an arrest warrant was issued against him in Italy. As Elisa's shirt, specifically the one her mother Filomena had made, was found with traces of Restivo's DNA. Finally, in June 2011, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for Heather's murder and 30 years for Elisa's, which added up to a total of 70 years. Danilo spent the rest of his life in prison.
Confermata ieri dopo 5 ore di consiglio la condanna di primo grado per Danilo Restivo, definito dai giudici della Corte d'Appello di Salerno il carnefice che uccise Elisa Claps il 12 settembre del 1993 a Potenza. Per Restivo dunque confermati i 30 anni. Sono state così accolte le ragioni dell'accusa e respinte le tesi difensive di innocenza dell'imputato. Solo pietà per quel carnefice, ma, ha detto Filomena Iemma, mamma di Elisa Claps, nessun perdono. Elisa non ne ha fatto in pace, ha continuato. Si sta rivoltando nella tomba, si rivolta sottoterra per come il Danilo Restivo si è comportato. Si doveva comportare da uomo e non l'ha fatto.
Unfortunately, justice can punish, but it can never restore what was taken away forever.